Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Rakesh Suryavanshi and today we are going to discuss about Azure Policies. We'll discuss through the Terraform as well as through the Azure portal. Before we start our discussion on Azure Policy, let's understand the definition which has been provided by Microsoft Azure. As per the Microsoft Azure, it says Azure Policy helps to enforce organizational standard to access compliance at scale through its compliance dashboard, and it provides an aggregated view to evaluate all the overall state of the environment. This definition sounds a bit complicated, but we'll not go through this complication. We'll try and understand the definition with a very simplistic way through the examples. Now, before we discuss what is an Azure Policies, let's discuss why do we need the Azure Policies first of all. Let me open my Azure portal and I'll show you the dashboard. This requirement I could have is, let's say I would like to have the entire subscription dedicated to a specific locations or set of location. For example, my project is I'm working on a project who is located in the West US region or the East US region, and I want to make sure that any resources, anybody is creating the resources under this particular project, under this subscription, they are only allowed to create on the given set of locations, such as in West Europe or East Europe. If anybody is trying to create a resource intentionally or unintentionally into any other location, then they should not be able to create a resources. So to basically allow, I would like to define certain group of rules for myself, for my organization, and I want those rules to be followed by everybody. And how do I do that? I do that with the help of policy. So basically, in the simple word, Azure Policies helps you to create built-in rules or the custom rules for your organization or your subscription, and by doing that you would be able to apply the rules onto the subscription or the management group, so that any person who is creating the resources under those subscriptions, they are bound to follow those policies, those rules. And if anybody is not doing so, basically your policies are making sure that those persons are not able to create those resources, or they're not allowed to go beyond those custom rules, beyond those policies, right? And how it happens basically. So technically how it happens, we'll go through that. Let's understand the simple example. So for example, you can go to the to find a policy. What you can do is you can go to all services, search for policy here, policy, and something like that. You'll find a policies here, and any policies which you are defining for your organization, you can find the policies under this particular section. So this service, which is provided by Microsoft, it has various sections. For example, it has the definition, a part of it, wherein, as I said, you define the certain rules, and of which is your policy or your set of rules. You define the definition of your policy here, and the definition area contains two parts of it. First is the Azure policy definition and the initiative definition. So policy, as I said, policy contains certain rules to be followed, and the initiative is basically if you would like to make a collection of policies and create a single rule set which has the collection of policies, then you can create an initiative. Initiatives, on the other word, you can define initiative as a collection of policy which combine multiple policies together and and apply on a particular target area. For example, the target area could be the entire subscription, collection of subscription, which is your resource manager, resource group, or it could be on the Azure specific type of resource or the specific resource group itself. So it depends upon the target area which you are applying, the policy will be applicable to that. We'll look at that, how do you apply the policy on the specific target area when we go to the product to the practical demonstration. So as you can see that I have the number of policies defined in my organization. Now if you look at that, the dashboard here, you have the different filtration option. You can have the policies applied on the you can choose the scope. This is what I was talking about. If you have multiple subscription, then you can choose the subscription here from here. If you don't have multiple subscription, a single subscription, you can select the single subscription, or you can select the resource manager as well, which is nothing, just a collection of subscription basically, which manages your different subscription. You can choose the definition type, filter the definition type, whether it is initiative or policies. Next is the you can define or choose or filter the policy type as in custom or built-in, and then you have the different categories within the policies. So what type of categories it falls into? For example, does it falls under the storage category or SQL, logic app? There are a number of categories which is given, but again you can have the filter criteria as well. So if I choose the built-in policies, for example, just to have a look at it, you can see that there are hundreds of policies defined by Microsoft, and then these are the initiative, and you can see that this particular initiative which is in preview, which contains a collection of 78 different policies, right? So as I said, your initiative could be a collection of multiple policy, and now here if you look at that, this is the policy which is of basically SQL Server should not have the management key, for example. Let's look at some of the example which I have described. Network interface, for example, I'll just search for the network interface should not have, or I'll say public IP address, public IP. Yeah, it says network interface should not have public IP address. So as per my organization policy, I don't want any virtual machines or any resources to be created with the public IP address, because it is going to be a security violation if I allow anyone to create a resource with the public IP address. So I don't want to compromise with the security. So I would like to enforce such policies in place. So how do I do that? I can go ahead and choose this particular policy and apply onto the given subscription or the given resource group. Or if I don't want these built-in policies to be applied, what I can do is I can customize this policy as per my requirement and make it custom, and then I can apply it. Now let's look at the definition of the policy, how it looks like. So if I'm going to click the policy definition, basically policy definition is nothing but it just the JSON representation of your terms and conditions. Like if you have the let's say term policies or insurance policies, so you have certain terms and conditions. So similar to that, your Azure resources will have some certain terms and conditions to follow in order to to maintain their life cycle into the given subscription. And how they do that is they have certain structure. The policy itself has certain structure which starts from the property, and then it has the metadata. Let's say in the metadata, the category filter box, which is the type of category this particular policy will fall into. And then you have mod. You will have the certain type of mod. For example, it will have indexes or all. In most of the cases, you would like to use the all mod for your policies, which will be applicable to all the resources or any type of resources which you will find in your given resource type. Next, you have the important thing about the parameters. Let's say if you would like to pass on any specific parameters to use for your policies, then you can pass on the parameters like if you are familiar with the ARM template to provision the resources in Azure, then this is just you would find it very useful, very similar, because in the ARM template also you would have the parameter section and then resource section. So similar to that, you have the policies parameter section defined in the JSON, and next you have the policy rules. So you have the parameters. In this particular case, I don't have any parameter to pass on for my policy. So next I have the policy rule, which is again my conditions. So here in the JSON, I'm defining the different type of conditions. So let's say I'm trying to define the condition which I'm reading out here. If all of my resources, so if all of my resources, which is of type field type, which is of type network interface, and the resources is not like public IP address, or it says the public IP address is not like, it means the public IP address is not, and then not, it means not and not equal to yes. Basically, it might look complicated, but you can think like it's negative plus equal to positive. So what I'm saying here is, if it finds any public IP address, if it doesn't find a public IP address, and then it says not find a public IP address is equal to find a public IP address. Bit complicated, but basically in the simplest word, what I'm saying here is, in my policy, any resource type which is of type of a network IP, a network interface, and if that particular network interface contains any public IP address, then I'm going to apply my effect. So what would be the effect? Effect will be in the then block. So because this is the if block, which has the end condition, this and this, and then if this becomes true, then the effect is going to be, the effect could be deny, allow, or audit effect. So these are the three type of effect your policy could have. So once you have these particular policies in place, basically you are going to deny the resources. So once you have the policy ready, you can write these policies or customize this, for example, right? Now, once your policy is ready, what I can do is I can assign to the policy, and once I click on the assign, it will ask me, okay, choose the scope on which you want to apply this particular policy. So I can say, okay, this scope could be my subscription, my entire subscription, or I can choose any specific type of resource group as well within the subscription. If I'm going to leave it blank, it means it says it will apply to the entire subscription. Next, if it policy will have any certain type of parameters, then I need to pass the parameter. If not, then I don't require any parameters. Basically, some of the policies which it requires to work on your subscription, those policies requires to run under the manage identity. So manage identity is basically, it creates the role-based access identity for you, and once you have the role-based access identity, the policy works on the background for you. So once I'm going to choose the manage identity, the manage identity will be created with it, and then you can apply it. Once you apply that, your policy would be available. I'm not going to apply that, but your policy will be available here in the assignment. So, and once you have the policy assigned, now next in this particular policy, what I'm doing here is I'm adding I would like to add the cost center tag on my resources. So any resources which is going to be provisioned on my scope, a defined scope, I would like to make sure that those resources will have the cost center tags created. So you can see that in this particular case, I'm using the parameters tag, and I'm passing the two parameters, tag name and tag value, and default value at the moment tag name value I'm giving the cost center tag, and the value at the moment I'm going to give the default value. And again, if you read out carefully the policy rule, same thing. If it finds the if it doesn't exist, what doesn't exist, the name of the tag, which is the value, you know that the value is uh, a parameter, value is coming from parameter, and we know that the default value of the parameter is cost center. Then what it will do is the detail operation. It will create the add or replace tag with the given value, and to add and replace tag, you will require certain role definitions to be added. So this is the role which needs to be used. So these are the fixed set of roles which has been provided by Microsoft Azure. So you can find the role list of roles which you need to use for your policies to follow the specific operations on the Microsoft documentation page. Now, once I do that, it can be applied here, available in the assignment like this. And once the assignment is available, so what we can do is, for example, I have the location policies. So what you can do is you can run the remediation task. So for example, I have the location policy, US locations. Now when I'm going to say, okay, create remediate this particular location assignment policy, so what I'm going to do is create assignment, next, and once it is going to run the remediation task. So basically what it will do is it will run the remediation policy task, and it will make sure it will give me the dashboard representation, what tasks it has performed. For example, these are the remediation tasks which I performed last time, and you can go to the details of the hyperlink task, what it has run, and then the compliance detail or the overall dashboard compliance detail. I can find it here for each of my policies, and any administrator team member can go ahead and find out what information, basically whether your resources are compliance as per the given policy definition or not. Okay, now let's try to understand how this policy works. How for example, let's say if my policy says I'm only allowed to create resources in the East US and the West Europe. So how do I do that? Let me go ahead and create a resource group just for the simplicity. So what I'm going to go do here is I'm going to explicitly go ahead and choose a resource into Southeast Australia East, which is not allowed as per my policy, and I'll remove next. So at the moment validation is passed, but ideally it should not be able to I should not be able to create resources in this given location, because my location policy says I'm only allowed to choose a record. So now what I'm doing here is, by clicking on the create button, basically what I'm doing is I'm calling in this the Azure portal itself is calling the REST API of the ARM template or the ARM Azure Resource Manager service, REST service. And REST, before invoking the actual REST service, basically REST service makes a calls to the Azure policy, and it checks whether the request which Azure ARM template receives, that particular request has to follow any specific policy. If it requires to follow any specific set of policy and it is not aligned to the given instruction or the rule set defined as defined in the policy, then it will immediately throw the validation error that you are not allowed to create any specific set of resources, for example. So let me go ahead and create a resource, and then yes, you will get the error. This is the kind of error, because now as soon as I click on create, I call the portal is calling the resource manager REST API Azure Resource Manager REST API is making a call to the Azure policy, and the Azure policy is saying, okay, you are not allowed to create any resources in the Australia is because your policy says that you are only allowed to create resources in the East Europe. Yeah, and you can see that the error is disallowed by the policy. Yeah, and if you look at the details of the error, then you will get to know, okay, which policies you know coming into play here. You can see that the allowed location as per my location policies. I hope this was helpful, and if you like the video, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe my channel. Thanks for watching it.